Hello, my name is Sophie, and for 28 years, I believed that love could be purchased with money and sacrifice. What I'm about to share with you is the story of how I learned the most expensive lesson of my life, and how sometimes the only way to find yourself is to lose everything you thought was home. My mother said they could not afford to take two people, so my sister got that vacation. There is not enough money to bring two people, so Jessica goes. Mother's words were simple and direct, delivered as casually as announcing what we would have for dinner that evening. She sat at that solid oak dining table I had purchased for $2,000 from Pottery Barn, her fingers gently stroking the glossy brochure from a Mexican resort in Cabo San Lucas. Her eyes carrying that expression I knew all too well, a mixture of guilt and entitlement. I paused in my dishwashing, warm water still flowing from the faucet, splashing against the porcelain plates with a gentle, rhythmic sound. There was no wall separating the kitchen from the dining room, so I heard every single word with crystal clarity. What? I turned off the faucet, dried my hands with a paper towel, and turned to face them. Father sat beside Mother, browsing flight information on his laptop screen. He looked up and gave me a somewhat awkward smile. Sophie, come sit down for a moment. About this Cabo trip, we need to discuss it with you. Jessica leaned back in her chair, flipping through a copy of Condé Nast Traveler magazine, her face glowing with barely contained excitement. Her blonde hair shimmered under the dining room chandelier, and her entire being radiated anticipation. I walked over and sat down across from them. The table was scattered with various travel brochures, five-star resorts, beachfront villas, unlimited drink packages. Every image showed azure waters, pristine white sand, and happy tourists holding cocktails. So what were you saying just now? I asked. Mother took a deep breath. Honey, 4 people would be too expensive. You know we are not exactly flush with cash these days. $1,800 per person, Father added. 4 people would be $7,200. That is really quite a lot for us. It is a substantial amount of money, Mother continued. So we thought perhaps it would be more practical for just the 3 of us to go this time. After all, Jessica has been under so much stress lately with her job search. She really needs to unwind and relax. And you are so busy with work. Jessica finally looked up, her eyes full of concern. That big project of yours does not finish until next month, right? You probably could not get away anyway. I nodded thoughtfully, looking at them. So, because of money, you decided to take only Jessica, not me. It is not that we are not taking you, Mother quickly said. It is just considering the practical circumstances. Practical circumstances. I repeated the phrase. All right, I understand. They seemed surprised by my calm reaction. You understand? Jessica asked tentatively. Of course. I stood up. You all have a wonderful time. I am going to finish the dishes. I turned and walked back to the kitchen, turning the faucet back on. Behind me, I heard them breathe sighs of relief, followed by the return of excited discussion. We need to buy new swimwear, Jessica said excitedly. I saw an absolutely gorgeous bikini, only $280. And sunscreen, Mother chimed in. We need to buy the high-quality kind, or our skin will suffer. I need some new vacation shirts, Father said. Those lightweight, breathable ones that are perfect for tropical climates. I continued washing dishes, listening to their voices grow increasingly animated. They began creating detailed shopping lists: new clothes, skincare products, sunglasses, hats, beach bags. Everything was essential. Every price was not too expensive. We will go to the mall tomorrow, Jessica announced. I have already done my research and know which stores have the best vacation gear. Great idea, Mother said. We can make it a little adventure before the trip. Father laughed and said, It sounds like the preparation for this trip will be fun too. I set down the last plate, turned off the faucet, and leaned against the kitchen counter. From this angle, I had a clear view of the dining room scene. Jessica was scrolling through her phone, showing various photos of vacation gear. Look at this, she said excitedly. This beach bag is perfect. And it is only $150. Mother leaned over to look. It is beautiful. You absolutely must buy it. Father nodded approvingly, holding his credit card. No problem. We will get all these things tomorrow. After all, good equipment makes for a perfect vacation experience. And that spa appointment, Jessica continued. The resort website says they have the most amazing seaweed facial, only $200 per session. I think each of us should book one. Absolutely! Mother clapped her hands in agreement. This is the kind of relaxation we deserve. I watched this scene, them excitedly discussing shopping lists, Father nodding approvingly, and me sitting on the sofa I had paid for, in the living room I had furnished, feeling like an outsider. That night, lying in that smallest bedroom under the stairs, I made a decision. I picked up my phone and began searching for Move Master Moving Company. If they could only afford to take 2 people, then soon they would only need to support themselves. 3 weeks later, when they returned, the home they expected to find had vanished, along with everything I had purchased. They screamed. It was a sound that mixed shock, terror, and a certain kind of offended fury. This noise echoed through the empty house, sounding particularly sharp and even somewhat comical with its echo effect. Without the thick Persian rug to absorb sound, without that massive L-shaped sectional sofa to block sound waves, and without the artwork covering the walls to muffle noise, this suburban 2-story house now resembled a giant, hollow resonance chamber. I sat on the 3rd step of the staircase, my MacBook Air resting on my knees, holding a cup of freshly purchased Starbucks coffee. This was also the only thing in the house that still belonged to me at this moment. The sound of the door lock turning had occurred 3 minutes earlier, followed by that familiar, suffocating, cheerful commotion. Oh my goodness, the Cabo sunshine was absolutely incredible. I never wanted to come back. This was Jessica's voice, carrying that spoiled petulance and showing off. Sophie is definitely going to be so jealous of my gorgeous tan. I heard the sound of luggage being dragged across the floor. That smooth hardwood floor, now without carpet protection, amplified every sound. I heard Mother excitedly responding to Jessica's descriptions of beach cocktails and luxury resort spa treatments. Their happiness was sharp and piercing, like fingernails on a chalkboard. All right, baby, next time we will definitely bring Sophie along, as long as, if we have the funds available. This was Mother's voice, carrying that false regret I had heard for 28 years. For 28 years, I had been the understanding daughter, understanding why Jessica needed to go to private college while I could only attend state school, understanding why her graduation had the whole family present while my promotion celebration dinner was canceled because Jessica was feeling down and needed company, understanding why Christmas budgets were always allocated to make her gift boxes bigger and more beautifully wrapped. Do not even mention it. I missed my big television so much. There is a Super Bowl replay tonight, Father said while struggling to drag his heavy suitcase through the doorway. He was looking forward to kicking off his shoes, collapsing into that lazy boy electric massage chair I had bought for $2,500, drinking beer while watching that 75-inch Sony 4K television I had purchased for $3,000. Then came dead silence. It lasted about 5 seconds. I could imagine them standing at the living room entrance, their brains struggling to process what they were seeing. Immediately after came that scream. I closed my laptop and calmly watched them rush into the living room. At this moment, where the 75-inch Sony 4K television had once stood, only a white wall and several exposed electrical outlets remained. Father's beloved Lazy Boy leather electric recliner had vanished. The solid oak dining table Mother used to entertain her book club friends had disappeared. That dark brown leather sofa set I had bought during a Macy's sale had vanished. Even the curtains had been taken down, and the afternoon sunlight streamed in unobstructed, illuminating the dust outlines accumulated over the years on the floor. These were the only proof that furniture had once existed here. "What is happening?" Father roared, his face flushed red from the blood rushing to his head, just like when he had too much cheap red wine on Thanksgiving. "Were we robbed? We need to call the police. Call the police now! Sophie, Sophie, where are you? Are you all right? Dear Lord!" Was he worried about me? No, he was just habitually calling my name when encountering trouble, like calling for an all-capable housekeeper, a repairman who would never refuse, or a living ATM machine. "I am here," I spoke calmly, my voice particularly clear in the spacious foyer. They spun around sharply and saw me sitting on the stairs. I wore a crisp, camel-colored trench coat with a black carry-on suitcase beside me. This was my final moment in this house. "Sophie!" Mother rushed over, her eyes shifting between terror and confusion, her brown pupils dilated from panic. "You are here! What happened? Why is the house empty? Did someone break in? Were you hurt?" Jessica stood at the living room entrance, still carrying her bags from the duty-free shop, those souvenirs purchased with credit cards she never had to worry about paying. Her mouth formed a perfect O, looking utterly foolish. "Where is my PlayStation?" she suddenly screamed, rushing toward where the entertainment center used to be. "My PS5 is gone, and my vinyl record player. That was a limited edition." No one broke in. I stood up, dusted off my coat, and there was no theft. "Then what is this?" Father pointed at the empty living room, his finger trembling. His voice held a vulnerability I had never heard before, as if the foundation supporting his entire world had suddenly vanished. "I moved out," I said, my tone as flat as discussing the weather. "Since I moved out, I naturally took my belongings with me." "Your belongings?" Mother's eyes widened as if she had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world. "What are you talking about, Sophie? These are household items. These are our shared property." I looked at them, these three people who shared my blood but felt utterly foreign to me. I thought about that evening 3 weeks ago, sitting on that sofa that was no longer here, listening to them excitedly plan their vacation. "No, Mother." I pulled a stack of neatly folded receipt copies from my pocket and gently placed them on the stair railing. Those papers rustled softly in the air, each one proof of money I had earned through my labor. Every single item that disappeared, from that television you missed so much, to the coffee maker in the kitchen, from that sofa set to the mattress in the guest room, even the Persian rug you used to walk on, was purchased by me. I have every receipt, every credit card statement record. I paused, looking at their shocked expressions. "You said you could only afford 2 people. Very well. Now you do not need to support me. Since I was excluded from the family vacation, since this clearly is no longer my home, I took my property with me." The air froze. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, one of the few things I had not taken, because it was a legacy from grandmother. To understand this moment's explosion, you must understand the past 10 years. Understand the real operating mechanism behind this seemingly harmonious middle-class family. In this house, there existed a secret but precise monetary system. Jessica paid for everything with her smiles, her charm, her eternally childlike cuteness, while I, Sophie, paid with actual dollars. I was the eldest daughter in the family and the eternally sensible child. This is a common affliction of all neglected children. We try to earn scraps of love by becoming useful. We become the family's pillars, but are never treated as the family's center. After college graduation, I could have moved to downtown, rented my own apartment, and started an independent adult life. But I did not. Because mother said, "Sophie, you just started working. Living at home will save you money, and we are family. Family members should help each other, right?" At that time, she held my hand, her eyes as sincere as the Virgin Mary. I thought that was love. Now I know it was an investment invitation. This was a trap, an elaborate trap wrapped in the guise of family affection. The real cost of living at home was that I became the family's de facto primary financial support. Father's salary was mostly consumed by his failed stock investments and weekly golf club membership fees, while mother had never worked full-time. Her part-time income barely covered her own beauty and shopping expenses. At first, it was small things. "Sophie, could you pick up some milk on your way home?" Then it became, "Sophie, you handle the grocery shopping this week. We need organic vegetables and gluten-free bread. Jessica's nutritionist says she needs to regulate her digestive system." Later, the old television at home broke down. That 15-year-old cathode ray tube television finally died, and father sat on the sofa sighing, rubbing his eyes and saying his vision was getting worse, and he could not clearly see what the news anchors were saying. His voice carried that kind of fragility and helplessness peculiar to elderly people. So I spent $3,000 on that 75-inch Sony 4K television. Father was very happy, patting my shoulder and saying I was a dutiful daughter, that having a daughter like me was the greatest pride of his life. That was the first time I felt that money could purchase recognition and love. This feeling was addictive and numbing. When the washing machine broke, I bought the latest LG washer and dryer set because mother said her arthritis was getting worse and hanging clothes was torture for her. When the living room needed new furniture, I bought that dark brown leather sofa set because mother said the old fabric sofa looked too cheap, and what would her book club friends think when they visited? When Jessica needed to go to college, her student loan required a co-signer. Mother cried, saying she and father's credit scores were insufficient for bank approval. So I became the co-signer and even helped her pay $300 in monthly interest. When mother wanted to renovate the kitchen, saying the 20-year-old cabinets were too outdated, I paid the majority for a complete set of stainless steel appliances and granite countertops. When the heating system broke in winter, I replaced the entire HVAC system. When pipes clogged, I called the most expensive 24-hour plumbing service. When the roof leaked, I paid for complete re-roofing. Jessica graduated but had not found her ideal job and needed time to explore her interests. This exploration lasted 2 full years, during which her credit card bills, phone fees, car insurance, even her gym membership and monthly beauty treatment costs were quietly transferred to my account. In this house, except for the 4 walls and aging infrastructure belonging to my parents, everything that made this place look like home, all the comfort, convenience, and modern amenities, was purchased and maintained almost entirely by me alone. I was like an invisible family CEO, responsible for maintaining the normal operation of this little kingdom, but never appearing in board meetings for decision-making discussions. But what did I receive? I received the evaluation that Sophie is strong, she does not need special care. I received the right to live in that smallest bedroom downstairs, originally a converted storage room with only one small north-facing window, cold and damp year-round. Meanwhile, Jessica occupied the best-lit master bedroom, even though she had been idle at home for 2 full years after college graduation, her daily life consisting of sleeping until noon, online shopping in the afternoon, and going out with friends in the evening. I received the praise that Sophie never complains, she is the most understanding. I received the honor of being introduced at every family gathering as the pillar of our family, then watching all attention immediately shift to Jessica, listening to relatives praise her beauty, her fashion sense, her artistic talent. I received the courtesy of being consulted whenever important decisions needed to be made, then watching my suggestions ignored while final decisions were always based on Jessica's needs and preferences. But the final straw that broke the camel's back was that Friday night conversation 3 weeks ago. That evening, we sat on the sofa I had paid for, in the living room I had furnished, discussing vacation plans I had not been invited to join. Mother's words, "We cannot afford 2 people," were like a sharp knife, cutting the last thread of illusion I had woven for myself about family and love. I realized that in their minds, I had never been a family member who needed to be supported. I was the one who supported them. I was the resource provider, not the resource consumer. My value was not in who I was, but in what I could pay for. The silence was broken. This shock finally transformed into anger, the last weapon of the powerless when facing uncontrollable situations. "Are you insane?" Jessica screamed, her voice as sharp as broken glass. "How could you take my PS5? That was my gift. You have no right to do this." She rushed toward the corner where the gaming equipment had been, as if those things would suddenly reappear. Her face was contorted with anger, that face always praised as sweet and lovely, now appearing hideous and unfamiliar. "That was indeed once a gift," I calmly corrected, "but legally speaking, that was property I purchased. Moreover, given that I, as co-signer, paid over $9,000 in interest on your student loans, while you initially promised to repay immediately upon finding employment but never followed through, I consider reclaiming these non-essential items as partial debt compensation to be completely reasonable." "Debt compensation?" Jessica's voice became even shriller. "We are family. Family members should not nitpick like this." "We are family," Father joined the chorus, trying to display patriarchal authority. But in the empty living room, his voice sounded hollow. "How can you be so cold-blooded, so heartless? We raised you for 28 years. I looked at him, this man who had once seemed as towering as a mountain in my heart. Now he looked like a deflated balloon, having lost all dignity and authority. "You raised me until I was 18. My voice was calm, but every word was clear and powerful. "That was your legal obligation as parents, not a favor. And in the 6 years since I graduated college, I have contributed over $180,000 to this family." I pulled out my phone and opened a carefully prepared spreadsheet. "Would you like to see specific numbers? Television, $2,999. Sofa set, $4,500. Complete kitchen appliance upgrade, $8,200. Jessica's student loan interest payments, $9,400. Master bedroom mattress and frame, $3,500. HVAC system replacement, $12,000. Roof repair, $6,500. Plumbing system upgrade, $4,200. These are just the major items. If we add monthly groceries, utilities, insurance, gasoline, the total is $184,742. The silence in the air was almost tangible. How can you calculate accounts like this?" Mother began crying. Her classic tactic, tears. "We are family. Family members should not talk about money. We did this because we love you. Why are you always so selfish? Why can you not understand us?" "Selfish?" I laughed, the sound echoing in the empty room, sharp and sarcastic. "Mother, let me tell you what real selfishness is." I walked up to her, looking at her face, red and swollen from crying. "Selfishness is clearly not being able to afford vacation for 3 people, yet feeling entitled to leave behind the person who pays the bills while you go enjoy sunshine and unlimited drinks. Selfishness is watching your eldest daughter wear 3-year-old clothes while demanding she buy the latest designer items for her sister. Selfishness is standing here now, not asking why I wanted to leave, not reflecting on your behavior, but questioning my right to dispose of my own property." I pointed at the empty walls. "Selfishness is, for 6 full years, using one daughter as an ATM machine, but never once inviting her to participate in any family decision, never once asking if she was willing to bear these costs, if she agreed to these arrangements." "Move everything back!" Father suddenly exploded, his face flushed red, veins bulging. "Right now, immediately! I can forgive your willful nonsense this time, as long as you restore everything and apologize to your mother and Jessica! This is the last time I command you as your father!" I quietly looked at him, at this man who had absolute authority in my childhood. He still thought he possessed some magical controlling power, still thought he could make me submit by raising his voice and putting on a stern expression. He did not understand that patriarchal intimidation requires an economic foundation to support it, and I had just uprooted that foundation completely. "No," this word came out light as a feather, yet heavy as a mountain. "Not only will nothing be moved back," I picked up that stack of receipts and slowly tore them up in front of them, letting the pieces fall like snowflakes onto the floor. Anyway, I had electronic backups of all documents. "I also want to tell you several pieces of important information you missed while enjoying the Mexican sunshine." I extended my finger and began counting one by one. "First, I have officially withdrawn from Jessica's student loan cosigner status. The bank now requires providing a new guarantor or paying off the remaining $52,000 in one lump sum. Their formal notice should already be in your mailbox. Good luck." Jessica's face instantly turned pale. You cannot do this. My credit record will be ruined. I will never be able to get a mortgage in my lifetime." "Then you should have started looking for a job seriously earlier," I responded calmly. "Adult actions have consequences, Jessica. Welcome to the real world." "Second," I continued counting, "I have canceled the automatic deduction authorization for the family phone plan. According to Verizon policy, the account will be suspended within 72 hours due to non-payment. Your phones will probably stop working Monday night." Mother grabbed Father's arm in horror. "Third, this house's water, electricity, gas, internet, and garbage disposal fees, plus house insurance, were all automatically linked to my bank account. I have canceled all automatic payments and notified each company to transfer services to you. If you want hot showers tonight, you had better start calling the gas company right now to reopen your account." I paused, enjoying their growing panic. "Oh, as new customers, you will need to pay deposits, usually twice the estimated monthly fees. Considering your credit scores are less than ideal, companies may require higher deposits. I suggest you prepare at least $3,000 in cash." The silence in the room was absolute. I could hear the distant sound of a neighbor's lawnmower, occasional cars passing on the street, various subtle noises the old house itself made. Sounds never noticed before, masked by furniture and living sounds. "You ungrateful little witch!" Father lost control, raising his hand as if to strike me. But I did not retreat, did not curl up waiting for the blow like I did as a child. I stood there quietly, pulled out my phone and held it at chest level, camera pointed at him. "If you dare touch me, I will immediately call the police and use this video as evidence." My voice was ice cold and firm. "I am no longer that 10-year-old girl afraid of your belt, father. I am now an independent, tax-paying, fully legally empowered adult citizen. Domestic violence is a felony. In Illinois, assaulting an adult can result in up to 1 year imprisonment and a $2,500 fine." His hand trembled in mid-air, and I saw something collapse in his eyes, perhaps for the first time realizing he had completely lost control over me. Not just economic control, even traditional patriarchal intimidation no longer worked. His hand dropped powerlessly. In that moment, he suddenly looked 10 years older. Without my financial support, without those material symbols that made him appear successful and dignified, he was just a weak, angry, helpless old man. "I am leaving." I picked up my suitcase and walked toward the front door. Each of my steps echoed in the empty house, like a countdown metronome. "Sophie?" Mother desperately called behind me, her voice finally carrying real panic. "You cannot just leave us like this. What will we do? We do not have money to pay next month's bills. Jessica still does not have a job. The house mortgage has 12 more years to pay off. How will we live?" I stopped at the doorway but did not turn back. I listened to the desperation in her voice, that pure fear when facing real consequences. This was the first time I heard her admit the truth. Admitting they were indeed completely dependent on me, admitting they could not maintain their current lifestyle without me. "Mother," I said softly, "do you remember what you said 3 weeks ago? We cannot afford 2 people. Now you do not need to support me. Is this not exactly the result you wanted?" "No, Sophie, wait, we can talk. We can rearrange things." Jessica also began to panic, rushing to the door trying to grab my arm. "You cannot just leave like this. This is not fair. We can figure something out together." I turned around and looked at the three of them one last time. Mother's face was covered with tears and mucus. Jessica's hair was disheveled from her earlier agitation, and Father stood in the center of the living room, looking completely disoriented. "Not fair?" I softly repeated the word. "Jessica, let me tell you what real unfairness is." My voice began to tremble, not from sadness, but from a righteous anger that had been suppressed too long. Unfairness is a daughter's love purchased with $180,000 that only exists when she is useful. Unfairness is when this daughter needs support and understanding. She is told she should be more mature and independent. Unfairness is this daughter's important life moments, promotions, awards, or even just wanting to share good news, always being interrupted by another daughter's emergencies or special needs. I looked into their eyes, trying one last time to find real understanding or remorse, but I only saw panic, anger, and self-pity. Unfairness is this daughter spending 28 years to understand that in this family, she was never a person, but a function. Not Sophie, but the one who pays. I opened the front door, afternoon sunlight spilling onto the doorstep, warm and real. "Goodbye." I walked down the steps, each step making me feel lighter. That feeling was like taking off a piece of clothing that had been worn too long and did not fit properly. I got into my Toyota Camry, this car I bought with my own money, no co-signers, no family help, completely belonging to me alone. I started the engine, that familiar sound now like a trumpet of freedom. Through the rearview mirror, I saw the three of them crowded at the doorway, like an abandoned sculpture group. Mother was still crying and shouting something. Jessica was stamping her feet in accusation, and Father just stood there blankly. But strangely, watching this scene, I felt no triumphant joy of successful revenge, nor a trace of guilt or regret. I only felt deep peace. That peace was like finally setting down a heavy backpack I had carried for 28 years. My shoulders naturally relaxed, and I found I could breathe more deeply and freely. I connected my phone to the car stereo, and Spotify randomly played a song I had not heard in a long time, Kelly Clarkson's Stronger. When the lyrics, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," played in the car, I could not help but laugh. I pressed the gas pedal and slowly drove away from this street where I had lived for 28 years. I did not look back at that house one last time. I knew that when night fell, that house would become dark and cold, not just because I had canceled the automatic electricity payment, but because it had lost all the elements that made it look like home. But this was no longer my problem. My new apartment had a 65-inch OLED television, an Italian imported leather sofa, a refrigerator full of food I liked, and most importantly, a quiet space that belonged completely to me alone. No one would come home drunk at midnight and wake me up. No one would knock on my door in the early morning demanding help with emergencies. No one would suddenly turn on the television to watch trash reality shows when I wanted to read quietly. That was my real home. As for them, as for this economic symbiosis that had once been packaged as family, this is the real cost of growing up. Some umbilical cords must be cut by the child's own hand, even if it bleeds, even if it leaves permanent scars. Because if you do not cut it, you will be slowly drained until you become an empty shell, an existence with only function, no self. I drove onto the interstate highway, toward the sunset, toward the future I had purchased with my own labor and dignity. Outside the car window, the American suburban landscape retreated. Those neat lawns, those similar houses, those families that looked harmonious, but might be full of complex relationships inside. I had once desperately wanted to fit in among them. Now I understand that true harmony does not come from superficial consistency, but from inner peace and confirmation of self-worth. My phone began ringing incessantly. The caller ID still showed home. I had not yet changed that contact label. The first call, I glanced at it and pressed decline. The second call, decline again. Then came a series of text messages. "Sophie, please come back. We can talk. This is not good for anyone. We are family. We should not do this. You are being too extreme." I looked at these messages, each filled with manipulation and emotional blackmail. Not a single apology, not a trace of reflection, only demands for me to return to my original position. Finally, I turned off my phone. Tonight, in my new apartment, I would open a bottle of good California Chardonnay, not because there was anything special to celebrate, just because I wanted to, because I had that right, because no one would tell me that money should be spent on more important things. I would sit on my balcony, watching the city lights, listening to the silence that belonged to me alone. This is what freedom sounds like. This is what a woman looks like when she chooses herself, chooses truth, chooses the future instead of the past. This is the weight of dignity.